Hey everyone, DCB here again. So I built me that full size IG a bit ago for a little fun challenge to myself, but really had no future plans on what to do with him once he was done. He turned out not half bad looking though, right? Nonetheless, he's quite large and I really don't have the personal space for him. So out he goes. I thought maybe I should put him on display in my vintage store, for kids. In my store, I have this back corner that just sort of became a catch-all for stuff we really didn't have anywhere else to put. It was kind of an ugly mess, so I thought this would be the perfect spot to make my display. My inspiration was the doorway of the client in Mandalorian. I know IG never really visited here, but I thought it was a cool, very Star Warsy looking entryway, and I really like that blue color. Like I said before, when I watch Star Wars movies and shows, I'm always observing and admiring and taking note of the stuff in the background. Now, I have a very teeny workspace. It's in the basement of my store and it's also used as a storage for overstock of our merchandise. It's really crammed down here. The ceilings are only 6.5 feet tall, which makes it kind of difficult to build a 7 foot tall droid, let alone an 8 foot tall doorway facade. The floor space isn't very accommodating either, and I end up putting my large power tools on wheels so I can pull them out as I need them. Now, because of my limited space, as well as my forgetfulness, I didn't take any video of me cutting the wood pieces for the display. There really was nowhere to put a tripod, and it's quite an ugly scene of me stepping over and moving stuff and just generally being frustrated with my third world sweatshop working conditions. Each piece was cut from half-inch MDF using my trusty Atlas table saw and a jigsaw. I had to build it in sections to fit my, as I mentioned, very small workspace. Once the doorway was assembled, I painted it with a custom tinted blue latex paint and then weathered it with woodland scenic liquid pigments. I was able to stand it up between the rafters, so that helped a bit. For the sidewalls, I skim coated the surface with a layer of drywall joint compound, but that didn't really give me the texture I was hoping for, so I ended up putting on a layer of quickcrete cement over that, and it's much better. Same for the stoop, though this will prove to be not such a great idea later on. It has the right look, but the layer is so thin that it keeps chipping off as people stand on it. For the area surrounding the walls and the stoop, I just didn't want the terrazzo flooring of my store to show in people's photos. So I decided to come up with something that had the look of dirt, but wouldn't get dirt all over my store. I settled on coating some plywood with a layer of vermiculite mixed with latex paint. This stuff is found in the gardening section of any hardware store, and it's a cheap and easy and quick method for creating a rough surface texture. Afterwards, I sprinkled on a layer of fine sand that I borrowed from my neighbor's dirt driveway. I grabbed a large cupful and sifted out the rocks and the pebbles until I was left with just the finer sand. I then used hairspray to hold that down, and then once that was all in place, I locked it all with a few layers of clear coat spray paint. Hey, look, I took some video footage. I have way more room upstairs to do that kind of stuff. So here I'm placing the 8 foot tall sidewalls into position, and then I top that off with the archway. This gets bolted on each side from the back, and the entire structure is bolted to the wall with a couple of L brackets. The stoop is also L bracketed to the sidewalls, and then the dirt surround is laid around that. I used a strong carpet tape to keep that in place. Now that I have the walls in the upright position, I can start to weather them. I'm going to start with the rust stain coming down from the guard droid's trapdoor. I wasn't able to do this when the walls were laying down because I needed gravity to help pull the paint in a downward direction. I'm using a heavily watered down woodland scenic in burnt umber to get a base coat. I slap it on liberally and let that run down naturally and wipe it as it's reached the point that I wanted it to. Over that, I'm using badgered rust paint right out of the jar as a final layer and letting that run down as well as spritzing it with water to help it on its journey. I made a temporary wooden trap door that I can remove later if I decide to put an actual guard droid in its place. But with these walls only being 8 inches thick, that could be kind of difficult. Unless he was always extended outward, I suppose. The wall color I painted was just a little too flat for me, so I'm going to give it some depth with a layer of woodland scenic in stone gray. Again, I heavily watered it down so that I had enough to do the entire walls. It's just a simple slap of the brush all over and then wipe off to taste. It really helps define the deep grooves and cracks in the cement texture, too. Every so often, I'll spray the surface with water to remove brush strokes and kind of smooth out the look. And here's the completed doorway. The trim around the door actually slides and locks into wooden blocks that I have nailed around the wall, and that holds the door in place. So nothing is actually nailed together, so it can be easily taken apart if needed. You can see that the stoop is already chipping. That doesn't bother me too much, but I'll have to probably address that soon. The day I announced that it was on display, I already got a few people coming to the store in costume to take pictures, and many more came without costumes. Everyone seems to enjoy it, so yay for me and IG11. I do have some more fun additions I'm going to be adding to it soon, so stay tuned for that.
You're weird.